Hey everyone, Zach here, back again for the first time with another message from LETR-Z. That's lies exposed, truth revealed in the last days. Because the Elohim that we serve is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first to the last, the Aleph and the Ta, the A to the Z. And we are living in the Z. So we're going to be jumping back in. This is going to be part 3 of the Prince of the Power of the Air. Part 3 is Wonders Seen and Unseen. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Romans 1:20. Entertaining devils unawares. If you get nothing else from this book, at least try and get a hold of the information contained in this section. It will go far in helping the Christian in matters of discernment. This cannot be emphasized strong enough. If you're unable to grasp what's being presented here, you're going to miss out on the how of a lot of the things being perpetrated today by the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. Wind, as we've already discovered, can picture in type the silent movement of spirits, be they good or evil. But this is not the only thing Scripture teaches us about the wind. In fact, according to the Bible, the literal wind is one of the most profound aspects of the Earth's atmosphere over which the devil can have control. This means that not only can the movement of wind typify devils in motion, but its very movement is also often influenced by the devil. When the Bible declares Satan as the prince of the power of the air, his ability to manipulate and direct air is one of the more outstanding reasons why he's been given this name. There's no need to doubt this because Scripture gives us a blatant example. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that Job has is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Most High. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, The fire of Yahuwah is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the four corners of the house. And it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Job 1:12, 14, 16, 18, and 19. In the book of Job, we find the Most High lifting his hedge of protection from around this godly servant. As a result, Job is exposed to the raw forces of Satan. Note that the verses cited explicitly identify the power and the hand of Satan as being responsible for 1, killer fire from the sky, and 2, deadly winds strong enough to decimate a house. These two actions speak volumes concerning the actual potential of the devil in influencing Earth's atmosphere. In quantifying this potential, Yahuwah's word labels Satan as a prince over this power. We've already addressed the meaning and importance of the title of prince. It indicates not a casual involvement in a thing, but an authority or ruler over it. Thus, when Yahuwah relinquished Job into the hands of the prince of the power of the air, we find Satan turning these very forces against Job. In looking closer at these events, more profound things are discovered. When the survivors of these calamities ran to inform Job, not a single servant mentions the devil, not one. Did you get that? Job's servants say nothing about the devil because they had no idea that Satan was responsible. From all outward appearances, these disasters were all individual, unrelated events. Job's servants were completely ignorant of the fact that the Sabaeans and the Chaldeans were moved by the devil. The fire from the heaven was caused by the devil, and the tornadic winds were brought by the devil. In other words, without the revelation of Scripture, there would be no way to know that these disasters were the moving of Satan's hand. And had Yahuwah not revealed these things to us, we would be just as blind and dumb as Job's servants. Remember earlier we said that Yahuwah warned Noah of things not seen. Hebrews 11:7. Well, here the scriptures are warning us of the powers of Satan in a similar manner. Certain aspects of this power we may be able to observe, but what our eyes actually see, many not fully disclose what's happening. If modern science were to have investigated the tragedies which befell Job, their conclusions would be no different than they are today. Science would announce that all these things were coincidences or accidents of nature. This is an extremely important lesson for the Bible believer to get, because if you don't get it, you're going to have the wool pulled over your eyes again and again and again. What's unfolding here is one of the primary reasons why the wisdom of this world is foolishness with Yahuwah. 1 Corinthians 3:19. The reports that Job's servants gave to Job teach us that many supernatural events can outwardly appear as natural events. Supernaturalism can be hidden behind the appearance of naturalism. When Job's servants brought evil tidings, none of them were aware that they were witnessing the moving of the hand of Satan. One servant even professed to be seeing an act of Yahuwah, Job 1:16, but he was grossly mistaken. You can see that. A thing can look natural or of its own accord, like robbers and cutthroats stealing property or murdering people, or fireballs falling from the sky, or winds blowing a house down. But in reality, it may very well be the hand of Satan. None of the events in Job had any outward supernatural markers, but they were all supernatural. They were all the result of principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. People have the misconception that an event that's supernatural must always outwardly appear contrary to nature. But this is not what the Bible reveals. While all supernatural events most certainly are contrary to nature, they don't always manifest this way. This is so because that you may see with your literal eyes may not always be what it is so. The events in Job are a prime example of this, but there are many others. The scriptures tell us, "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." Hebrews 13:2. This verse from the book of Hebrews is addressing the reality of supernatural beings in our midst, angels of Yahuwah. It's telling us that we are mostly unaware of these creatures, but not because they're physically invisible, although this can sometimes be the case, but because angels can outwardly appear exactly as human men, albeit strangers. Did you ever read over about Samson's parents who were caught off guard by one of the Most High's holy messengers? They mistook him for a normal human man until he ascended in the flame. Judges 13:1-20. In other words, until his being did something blatantly against nature, those who were visibly and physically in his company were completely clueless about their involvement with the paranormal events. Had the angel never gone up in the fire, Manoah and his wife would have remained ignorant of their angelic encounter. This is what happened with the servants of Job. When Satan worked against Job, he did not indicate that the things he did were the result of anything outside of nature. Many supernatural occurrences happen exactly like this. While Samson's father and mother were unaware of angelic activity, Job's servants were unaware of demonic activity. What this all means is that there are two kinds of supernaturalism found in Scripture: overt and covert. While the word supernatural appears nowhere in the Bible, I'm sure that no one would argue the fact that things and events indicative of the word are easily found there. The circumstances surrounding Job and Manoah have helped introduce us to this truth. The following segments will further outline and define these two supernatural classifications while giving more scriptural examples. The encounter of Samson's father and mother with an angel is an outstanding case of covert supernaturalism. Manoah and his wife were both under the impression that this being was nothing more than a man of Yahuwah. Judges 13:6. It wasn't until they witnessed overt supernaturalism that they realized their eyes had deceived them. The man was more than just a man. When the laws of nature are nullified. The word overt refers to something that is out in the open, apparent, or public. Thus, overt supernaturalism can be defined as a thing or event that, when witnessed, it is immediately obvious that something out of the ordinary or unnatural is taking place. Here, viewers observe established laws of nature being counteracted, broken, or bent. The Bible often refers to these kinds of blatant events as signs, wonders, tokens, or miracles. While many examples of this can be found in Scripture, here are some of the most outstanding. 1. The burning bush. Exodus 3:2. When witnessing a bush burning with fire that wasn't being consumed, Moses knew immediately that it was not an event of nature. 2. Aaron's rod. Exodus 7:10, etc. At the very moment Aaron's rod was transformed into a serpent, all those who saw the event were instantly without doubt that such a thing was supernatural. Even Pharaoh knew that this feat couldn't be duplicated naturally. This is why he called his sorcerers and magicians to come to his aid. Exodus 7:11. 3. The parting of the Red Sea. Exodus 14:21. When the waters of the Red Sea were parted into two walls and congealed, not a single person who crossed over on the dusty ground considered the happening an act of nature. 4. Flying horses of fire. 2 Kings 2:11-12. When Elijah and Elisha witnessed fiery horses descending from the sky, they knew right away that such beasts were not of this earth. 5. Messiah walking on the sea. Matthew 14:25, Mark 6:45-51. The walking of the Master Yahusha on the Sea of Galilee is one of the most well-known overt acts of the supernatural in all of the Bible. Messiah's disciples literally saw this happen, and not only did the Master walk upon the water, but the wind was raging and creating great boisterous waves, in so much that the disciples were unable to properly row their boat. But not only did the water have no effect on the walking of the Master, neither did the wind. He walked on the water and through the tempestuous air without hindrance of any kind. The laws of physics and nature were completely nullified. 6. Messiah ascending into heaven. Acts 1:10. The ascension of the Master Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah, into heaven was another shocking sight with many witnesses. The movement of a man up into the air without wings or any mechanical or man-made assistance had to have been a jaw-dropping sight. The paranormal aspects of all these cases above were outwardly manifest, meaning all instances have witnesses which can testify that these were events beyond the natural. When people think of the supernatural, it is always these kinds of self-evident events that they think of. When Messiah healed the blind, deaf, maimed, and crippled, this is the exact kind of supernaturalism the people witnessed. They saw the laws of nature being violated, publicly out in the open. However, unbeknownst to the average person and many Christians, many other Bible instances of nature-breaking phenomena do not happen this way. Instead of being open and obvious, overt, they are hidden and secret, covert. This is a very important truth for the Bible believer to grasp. Messiah's walking upon the stormy sea is one of the greatest displays in the Bible of overt supernaturalism. Hidden in plain sight. The word covert means the opposite of overt. In contrast to a thing that's exposed, covert refers to something that is covered or hidden. Covert supernaturalism may be defined as a thing or event that, when witnessed, is not immediately obvious that something out of the ordinary or supernatural is taking place. It outwardly appears as something happening of its own accord, naturally, without intervention from forces outside of nature. The scriptures below help demonstrate this. 1. Jonah swallowed by a whale. When Jonah was swallowed by the fish, there was no way for him nor the men who threw him overboard to know that this creature had been prepared by Yahuwah. Jonah 1:17. It outwardly appeared as simply a fish swallowing down its next meal. No one was aware of the fact that the whale was controlled by forces higher than nature. 2. The raider attacks on Job. These events have already been addressed, but they are paramount examples of the supernatural taking place covertly. When the Sabaeans and the Chaldeans invaded Job's land, stole his cattle, and murdered his servants, nothing about these things appeared out of the ordinary. Superficially, it simply seemed to be evil men doing the things that evil men do. But the Bible clearly delineates Satan's power as the moving force behind it. Job 1:12. This helps give us a clear window into how the devil directly uses fallen man. The profound thing about Job chapters 1 and 2 is that nearly all the events on the surface appear to be manifestations of the natural, when in fact they are supernatural. 3. Angelic manifestation. Angels can also manifest overtly and covertly. In some instances, it's obvious to the viewer that what's being witnessed is an angel, Luke 2:6-14, etc. In other cases, however, the viewer is completely unaware. We've already talked about this, and it happens over and over in the Bible. 4. The murder of Messiah. The whole reason Messiah was crucified was because of covert supernaturalism. Yahuwah was right there in their midst, but they didn't believe it. Most of the witnesses who looked at the Master Yahusha outwardly were not convinced that he was the creator of the universe. He simply appeared to be a man, and this is exactly what many believed, his working of miracles notwithstanding. Covert supernaturalism hid the truth that he was Yahuwah manifest in the flesh. 1 Timothy 3:16. The Jews answered him, saying, "For a good work we stone thee, not miracles of healing, etc. but for blasphemy, and because that thou being a man makest thyself Yahuwah. John 10:33. Yahuwah himself came unto man in the form of a man, and this is what most people were and are ignorant of. Messiah Yahusha, who being in the form of Yahuwah, thought it not robbery to be equal with Yahuwah, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Philippians 2:5-8. The whole concept of Yahuwah being manifest in the flesh is the ultimate form of covert supernaturalism. In fact, the whole notion appears to be a paradox. How can a man be Yahuwah? Well, a normal human earth-born man can't be Yahuwah. The only way for such a thing to occur is if Yahuwah willingly takes on the form of a man himself. And this is exactly what Yahuwah did when he was born of a virgin. When such a thing happened, Yahuwah was forcing us not to believe what we're seeing, but to believe what he's saying. This is why the words of Yahuwah are so important. Yahuwah often teases man with works of overt supernaturalism, healings, walking on water, ascending into heaven, etc. Because this is what man always demands of him, Matthew 12:38, etc., but the Most High wants our faith placed in his words, not in our eyes. Excuse me. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Yahusha said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen, and yet have believed. John 20:29. Surprisingly, devil possession, the indwelling of an unclean spirit in the body of a human host, can also manifest similarly in both overt and covert forms. One form of demonic possession, the more overt, makes it obvious that something is not right with the host in whom the foul spirit dwells. Scripture shows that this kind of possession can manifest openly in individuals as inappropriate nakedness, Mark 5:15, etc. Superhuman strength, Mark 5:4, etc. Affinity for death, dead things, or locations of such, like tombs, cemeteries, and graveyards, etc. Matthew 8:28-32, Luke 8:27, etc. Chronic depression, Matthew 4:4-6, etc. Self-mutilation or self-torture, Mark 5:5, etc. Suicidal thoughts and fulfillment, Mark 9:17-22, Matthew 27:5, etc. Chronic illness and deafness, muteness or blindness, Luke 13:16, Mark 9:25, Matthew 9:32-33, Matthew 12:22, etc. And this is also in spite of the fact that nearly all of these things can happen to a person without that person being demonically possessed. On the other hand, in the more covert or hidden form of devil possession, no such outward signs are on display. The possessed individual outwardly appears no different than any normal person. Examples of this may be found in Satan's possession of Judas Iscariot, a case in which the possessed was not running around naked, mutilating himself, nor had an affinity for the dead. He was acting like a saint, a disciple, one who took part in the ministry of the apostleship. Acts 1:25. In other words, Judas was completely invisible as far as being detected as one being moved and used by the devil. This is so much the case that when the Most High announced, when the Most High and the Master announced that one of the disciples would betray him, none of them had any idea to whom Messiah was referring. Now, when the even was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceedingly sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Master, is it I? Matthew 26:20-22. And after the sop Satan entered into him, Judas, then said Yahusha unto him, Judas, that thou doest do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. John 13:27-28. This type of hidden demonic infestation continues today. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Messiah. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. 2 Corinthians 11:13-15. Another case of this is seen in the damsel possessed with a spirit of divination, who displayed none of the signs indicative of one being inhabited by an evil spirit. This is even though the very account openly states that the woman was possessed, Acts 16:16. Witches, wizards, sorcerers, and other practitioners of occult arts can also fall into this category of being possessed without exhibiting any apparent signs of it. Scripture identifies these individuals as those that have familiar spirits, consulters with familiar spirits, workers with familiar spirits, and those that dealt with familiar spirits. See Leviticus 19:31, 20:27, Deuteronomy 18:11, etc. The witch of Endor, or of whom King Saul inquired, was not running around like a mindless demoniac when the king sought her, 1 Samuel 28:6-25. Nor were Pharaoh's magicians when approached by Moses and Aaron, Exodus 7, etc. Neither was Elymas the sorcerer when encountered by Paul, Acts 13:6-12. Yet in all these cases, according to Scripture, such individuals dealt with, worked with, and were possessed regularly by unclean spirits. Don't be deceived by the fact that some demonized people are associated with wisdom. Scripture doesn't deny this. Some people will use this fact to draw others into it. This is how many witches recruit followers, by appealing to one's desire to gain knowledge. But mere wisdom is not the issue. The issue is what kind of wisdom, because not all forms of wisdom are equal. There's Yahuwah's wisdom, and there's ungodly wisdom. There's the wisdom of this world, and there's the wisdom of Yahuwah. The question is, which wisdom is being acquired? The Bible's clear that witches, wizards, magicians, and such do not possess the wisdom of God. Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards, to be defiled by them. I am the Most High, your Yahuwah. I am Elohim, your Yahuwah. Leviticus 19:31. The possession of Judas Iscariot is a great example of demon activity in covert operation. What could possibly be more deceptive than appearing as one of the 12 when alerting no one? John 6:71, John 6:71, etc. See Revelation 13:3 for a good example. And the soul that turneth after such as have familiar spirits, and after wizards, to go whoring after them, I will even set my face against that soul, and will cut him off from among his people. Leviticus 26. There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Most High. And because of these abominations, the Most High thy Yahuwah Elohim, doth drive them out from before thee. Deuteronomy 18:10-12. And by the way, I'm not picking on magicians, witches, and wizards to shoehorn all false, ungodly wisdom to people who are only involved in such things. Satanic wisdom exists at levels much deeper than this. 2 Corinthians 11:14-15. These types of practitioners are simply listed to demonstrate that such forms of false wisdom do exist and can be learned. It's just that the Most High forbids it. If you care about Yahuwah's truth and your own soul, you'll heed Yahuwah's warnings. Normally, people expect devil possession to exhibit signs similar to lunacy or being mentally unstable. There's just cause for thinking this way. But as a result of certain covert-like forms of demonization, some instances of devil possession or influence are not limited to public crazy type behavior. Some diabolic individuals may come across as highly intelligent. More on this later. This is why we find the titles of witch, wizard, and magician all having etymological ties to a form of wisdom. But this should come as no surprise, since Satan himself is described as full of wisdom. Ezekiel 28:12. Lucifer's fall didn't turn him into a blabbering imbecile. It merely corrupted the wisdom that was in his once perfect mind. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom. Ezekiel 28:17. One of the easiest ways to demonstrate covert supernaturalism is for you to go look in the mirror and stand there a few seconds while staring yourself in the eyes. Do you see that spirit behind there? The spirit behind your eyes? Do you see it? No, you don't. Well, now you can congratulate yourselves because you've just witnessed covert supernaturalism in action. According to the final authority, every man, woman, boy, girl, and animal on this planet has a supernatural aspect closer to them than their own beating hearts, a spirit. But science has never recognized this, and make no mistake, such grand lapses in scientific circles are still going on today, and probably to a greater extent. Recognizing the reality of veiled incidences of the supernatural can be a huge game changer when it comes to the discernment of supernatural events. Science really has no way of getting its foot on the door on these getting its foot in the door on these things. When such mysteries take place, nothing out of the ordinary is suspected. The events occur in plain sight, but the supernatural characteristics are hidden, just like the satanic events of Job 1 and 2. One outstanding example in the Bible of this, as we've already addressed, declares that witnesses of such happenings are left unawares. Hebrews 13:2. Although modern science believes it, the universe is not built or guided by nature. Mindless, blind chance, chaos, and accidents, where microscopes, telescopes, and computers will eventually figure everything out. The universe was built and is guided by the supernatural. The Bible tells us, in the beginning, Yahuwah, Genesis 1:1. Both Yahuwah and Satan play a major role in history in this current fallen world, not only thousands of years ago, but also in the 21st century. But most of those today who are in charge of our teachings are completely ignorant of this. Take any public school or university. Understanding this helps lay a foundation on how the devil can work through nature without mankind being aware of him. His role as the prince of the power of the air can manifest in exactly this manner. This means any aerial phenomena is fair game for his manipulation, whether it be storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, fireballs, lightning, or other occurrences. While the incident in Job 1:19 represents the Bible's only outright example of Satan manipulating the air, this does not imply in any way that this was the only time such power was exercised. Such a conclusion would be highly naive. The devil's title of prince over the air expels this notion. As Bible believers, we are to take the example in Job and apply it to real-world situations. This way, Scripture becomes a light to our path, illuminating the world around us. These truths help us avoid being ignorant of the adversary's many devices. 2 Corinthians 2:11. What's been covered in this section, I believe, is one of the most important lessons the Christian can learn. This knowledge, the reality of covert and covert forms of the supernatural, opens up a whole new avenue of spiritual discernment. Read this section over as many times as you need. The bottom line is to let this information sink down into your brain, because it's too important to ignore. Due to these things, I'm reminded of words the Most High once spoke to Israel, Master Yahusha. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Was the Most High. Hosea 4:6. It's one that I say a lot. The first three parts of this book have laid a foundation for what's to be addressed hereafter. Well, that concludes part 3. We're going to go on to part 4 in the next video. It's called Evil Rides the Wind. Terrors are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passeth away as a cloud. Job 15:30. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope you learned something. I did, as always. And the Most High Yahuwah bless you all. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.